What makes some small groups work while others live in mediocrity? What makes some small groups worth our time and energy while others are just ordinary groups that we'd rather not attend? What is it that sets a group apart, that causes it to make a difference in the world? What makes it distinct? For about 20 years, I've been asking these questions about the keys to understanding a community that makes a difference in the world. There have been many ideas proposed as magical elixirs that will take your group over the top. You know, ideas like the right kind of curriculum, or the right size of group, or the right kind of group organization, or the right kind of group duration, or the right kind of group leader training. There are lots of great ideas out there, and I've taught a lot of these things. But I found that in almost every case, these ideas produce two different kinds of groups. In almost every situation, these ideas either result in normal kinds of groups or groups that make a difference in the world. Now, if we want to understand the difference, we must look deeper than the external strategies. In other words, if we want to notice the difference between a normal group and a group that really makes a difference in the world, or a missional group, we must look at the stories, the way of life of the group itself. How do we actually live out life together in these groups? These stories reveal the practices of how we do life together. There are two common or two normal stories that I've observed in small groups, and two uncommon or difference-making stories. First, let's look at the two common stories. The story of personal improvement. If you participate in a story of personal improvement, you might say something like this: we get together because life is tough in this world and we need a few friends. It is not always convenient for us to meet every week, but we do meet when we can. Usually we meet in short 6 or 7 week periods, or we meet a couple of times a month. We get together, talk a bit about God or study the Bible, and share what is going on at work and in our family. I'm not sure that we are very close, but it is good to have a place where we can share a little about our lives and what's going on. Being in my small group has improved my life. Now, the story of personal improvement is simply the story of this group benefits me. It helps me. It helps me get through the rest of my life. And as soon as it doesn't benefit me, we move on to something else. That's the story of personal improvement. The second common or ordinary group life story is the story of lifestyle adjustment. Now, if you're in a lifestyle adjustment group, you might say something like this: this group has become a priority to us. We have adjusted our schedules to meet together at least every other week, but usually we meet weekly. In our meetings, we study the sermon preached by our pastor or use a Bible study guide that we find personally beneficial. We truly enjoy each other's presence, and we put a high priority on the group and the members in the group. We even do something special once a month. We rise to the occasion when someone has a need, and there is a sense that we are friends. Now, the story of lifestyle adjustment really is about adjusting our lives to focus on and prioritizing a meeting or weekly meeting or bi-weekly meeting. In other words, we adjust our schedules enough and adjust our priorities enough to fit people into our lives and fit the meeting into our lives. Now, these first two stories don't often look much different than the stories of the broader culture. In other words, when you peek inside these small groups, the way we live in those small groups doesn't look much different and often reflects what goes on in the broader culture of life. Now, this doesn't make these groups bad. I'm not judging that fact. Many people need these groups, but most people stop there. They don't see that there's something beyond it, some kind of group life that will make a difference in the world. Now, let's look at the final two stories. And these two stories are difference-making stories. They reflect the kind of life that God is calling us to move beyond into God's mission. Let's look at the story of relational revision. This is a story of doing life together. Now, if you're a part of this doing life together kind of group, you might say something like this: our group has a weekly meeting, but I'm not sure that you would call it a meeting in a formal sense of the word. When we get together, it is the culmination of the rest of the week, when we have been together in one another's lives. It is a time of sharing what God has been doing, praying for each other, and talking about what God is how God is using us in our normal lives. The most important part of a group, however, is not the meeting. It's how we are connected the other 6 days. I've never been a part of a group like this where people are so willing to sacrifice time and energy for one another. And this connectedness actually spills out into our neighborhood. It seems like we're always interacting with, praying for, and serving people who live near us. And in some ways, they're just as much part of our group as those who call themselves Christians. Now, this relational revision story is really about learning how to do this. It's not about arriving at some level of perfection. It's about being a part of a group that says we want to be more. We want to learn how to do life together and learn how to join God in His mission, and we're going to practice and work at this. That's the story of relational revision, or the story of doing life together. Now, the final story about that makes a difference in this world is the story of missional recreation. And this story of missional recreation could be described as the story of putting love where love is not. This is a story of a people who are called to do something radically distinct. Now, if you're a part of a group like this, you might say something that resembles these words. We have developed a way of connecting with each other and God that has resulted in some rather unpredictable developments. 2 couples and a single person in our group live within walking distance of each other. So, as a group, we decided to adopt their neighborhood. We started with a block party. At first, it was hard because no one knew us, but after the first party, we started becoming a presence in the neighborhood. Then one person started a summer children's Bible study. And as she got to know the neighbors and their needs, we began to pray. Now we have come around a single mom who has 3 kids, and we include her as much as we can in the life of the group. She has yet to fully understand who Jesus is, but we feel led to embrace her and the kids and see what God does in her life. Now that's just a snippet, a picture inside this organic thing that is missional recreation. It's unpredictable, and it fits what's going on in the neighborhood. And it's based upon the story of relational revision, of doing life together, where we learn how to do this. And this recreation arises out of this learning of how God is shaping us, and we become creative. In other words, this is not some kind of program introduced from above, from some kind of book or some kind of training program that's going to tell you how to do this. Instead, this is about learning how God moves through you as a community to engage a local community in a unique way that fits that local community and the needs of that local community. Those are 4 stories. The first story, the focus of personal improvement, is on personal benefit. In the second story, the focus of lifestyle adjustment is about prioritizing the meeting. And personal benefit and lifestyle adjustment are all about doing groups in common ways. The final 2 stories are the ways that God invites us to make a difference in the world. The story of relational revision is about learning to do life together and learning the practices of how God's love is reshaping us to love one another and love our world. And then the focus of the final story, the focus of missional recreation, is about creating organic life where we learn to put love where love is not. In this study, over the next few weeks, the focus will primarily lie on relational revision and learning to do life together. And you're going to discover these rhythms, these practices that will help you learn and take journeys beyond just simply being a normal group and move beyond simply being an ordinary group that does a weekly Bible study or does life normally. It will move you into the practices where you can discover how God has called you to be on mission in this world in a way that you can learn to be distinctive and a difference-making society in a world that's hungry for love. That's the exciting part about these practices, and as you learn to move into this, you will organically develop creative ways of being a community that connects with local people who are in need of God's love, and then you will be able to organically and creatively make a difference in that setting.